Could a human be born without fear? Not less fear, not controlled fear, not the kind of calm that comes from years of training or discipline or telling yourself to breathe, but zero fear, completely absent, from birth. The way a rock has no fear, the way the dark has no fear. Most people hear that and think it sounds like freedom. This video is going to show you why it is anything but. There is a woman alive today who cannot feel fear. Scientists call her SM. They have never published her real name. What they have published, across decades of research, is something that reads less like a medical case and more like something out of a horror story. Except SM is never the one who is scared. Researchers have shown her horror films. She found them entertaining. They took her to one of America's most extreme haunted houses, the kind that makes grown adults walk out. She laughed. She tried to startle the actors. They put her in a room with snakes and tarantulas. She reached out to touch them while the scientists stood back. Then someone held a knife to her. She leaned in, curious. In over 20 years of being studied, across every test scientists could design, SM never produced a single fear response. Not once. Not even close. She is the closest thing to a fearless human being that has ever been documented. And the reason why starts with something most of us have never thought about. A tiny structure buried deep inside your brain that has been keeping you alive since the moment you were born. You have two of them, one on each side, almond-shaped, ancient. Scientists call them the amygdalae. Think of them as your brain's silent alarm system. The moment something threatens you, a sudden movement, a sound that doesn't belong, a face that looks wrong, they fire. Before you are even conscious of what happened, before you have formed a single thought. Your heart accelerates, your muscles tighten, your body is already moving towards safety. SM's amygdalae are gone. She has a condition called Urbach-Wiethe disease. Fewer than 300 people in the world have ever been diagnosed with it. In her case, it caused calcium deposits to form slowly inside her brain, targeting her amygdalae with almost surgical precision. By the time she was an adult, both structures were completely destroyed. Not damaged, not weakened, gone. And so she moves through the world without the alarm, without the whisper that says something is wrong, without the signal that has kept every human being alive since the beginning of human history, which is exactly what makes her life so disturbing. SM has nearly died multiple times. Not from rare diseases or freak accidents, from ordinary situations that her brain simply could not recognize as dangerous. When she was held at knife point, she felt curious. She approached the person the way you or I might approach an interesting stranger at a party. She has walked into situations any functioning adult would immediately read as threatening and felt nothing telling her to leave. She has been in an abusive relationship and lacked the internal warning that should have fired long before things got dangerous. This is the part that rewrites everything you thought you knew about fear. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is the only reason you are still here. And SM's story seems to answer the question completely. She has no amygdalae. She has no fear. Case closed, except it isn't. Because in 2013, something happened in a research lab that stunned everyone who had ever worked with her. Scientists at the Laureate Institute for Brain Research decided to try one final experiment. They gave SM a controlled mixture of air, but with a much higher concentration of carbon dioxide than normal, enough to trigger an overwhelming physical sensation of suffocation. They expected nothing. SM panicked. For the first time in documented history, she felt fear. Real, undeniable, biological terror. She described it as the most frightening experience of her entire life. The researchers sat back and looked at each other because everything they thought they understood had just changed. It turned out the amygdala is not the only fear system in the human brain. There is something older, deeper, a pathway running through the brainstem, the most primitive part of your brain, that monitors the internal state of your body and can trigger fear entirely on its own. Not in response to the world outside you, in response to what is happening inside you, the sense that your lungs are failing, that something is catastrophically wrong. SM had this pathway the entire time. Even she was not truly fearless, which means the question we started with just got much harder to answer. So, could a human actually be born without fear? Here is what the science says. Fear is not one thing. It is a system built in layers across hundreds of millions of years of evolution. The deepest layer lives in the brainstem and predates almost everything else in the human brain. It is older than language, older than memory. It is the reflex that makes a newborn startle at a loud noise, that makes an infant cry when it senses it is falling. This layer cannot be removed without removing the ability to respond to the most basic physical threats to survival. A human born without it would not survive the first year of life. The middle layer is what SM is missing, the learned fear system, the part that encodes danger from experience. Touch fire, learn that fire burns, hear a threat, encode it so your body recognizes it next time. Without this layer, Every dangerous situation feels brand new. The lesson never sticks, the alarm never learns, and what SM's life shows us is exactly what that looks like in practice. It looks like walking toward a knife. It looks like staying in situations that should have ended. It looks like needing other people to protect you from a world your own brain can no longer read. So could someone be born this way, missing this middle layer entirely? Possibly, but they would not be powerful. They would be dependent. They would need the people around them to do the work their nervous system cannot. And without that safety net, the fearless life ends quickly, quietly, from something completely preventable. There is one more thing worth saying. The people we call fearless, soldiers, surgeons, climbers, first responders, are not without fear. Brain scans confirm their alarms fire exactly the same as everyone else's. What is different is what happens after. The signal fires, and instead of collapsing into panic, it gets converted into focus, into precision, into action. That is not fearlessness. That is mastery of fear, and it requires the fear to be there first, because bravery is not the absence of the alarm. Bravery is choosing to move forward while the alarm is screaming. Without the signal, there is nothing to push against. There is no courage. There is only silence where the warning should be. SM is not brave. She cannot be. There is nothing to be brave against. The fear you feel, the tightening in your chest, the instinct to step back, the voice that says something is wrong, is not a weakness. It is 4 billion years of survival compressed into a single signal. Every ancestor you have ever had felt that signal and listened to it. That is why you exist. That is why any of us exist. Could a human be born without it? Not without losing something so fundamental that the word human starts to feel like it no longer fits. The oldest thing inside you is not your memories, not your thoughts, not your name. It is the part of you that knows when to be afraid. Think about the last time you felt genuinely afraid, not anxious, not nervous, actually afraid, the kind that moves through your body before your mind catches up. Most people spend their lives trying to feel less of it, trying to be calmer, cooler, less reactive, less shaken by the things that shake them. But SM's story asks a different question. Not how do you have less fear, but what are you without it? And the answer is something closer to fragile than free. Something that looks like courage from the outside but functions like blindness on the inside. A person walking through a world full of signals they were never built to receive. We romanticize fearlessness. We put it on posters and in movies and call it strength. But the science says something quieter and stranger. It says the bravest people who have ever lived were not the ones without fear. They were the ones who felt it fully and moved anyway. SM cannot do that. She never could. The alarm is what makes the choice meaningful. The danger is what makes the courage real. And the next time something frightens you, really frightens you, that signal running through your body is not a malfunction. It is the oldest conversation your brain knows how to have. A message passed down through every generation that came before you, refined across millions of years, delivered to you in a fraction of a second. It is your ancestors telling you they survived, and asking you to do the same.